Hello folks, this is both brews, and this is time to actually see how our predictions or prototypes match against reality. I'm gonna go through some extra deck lists that I've brewed in addition to what you've seen in previous videos, and then I will also try to match it with what others been posting on the internet, and then compare it to, of course, some of the deck lists I mean, to the SCG Indianapolis Open tournament this past weekend. So let's see how the progression went and so on. So I'm gonna touch like very competitive decks and something that we haven't really seen at the Open. So very big range of decks, I think. And this is not gonna be it. This is part one, so there is gonna be part two where I'm gonna actually check out some of the decks that I've already shown to you and match them up. These are just the decks that I haven't really shown you before in terms of my own prototypes and deck lists. So let's begin. So this is casual deck, that's Subs and Aristocrats. I've shown you some version of it in the other video, but this is a more like creative one with a bunch of toolbox in it and stuff like that. It did cut a lot on a lot of combo pieces and went with a bunch of one-offs because of a bunch of tutors. So we've cut some cut throws, sifters, monitors, one displacer, and then we have a bunch of one-offs for the Eldritch Evolution and Traverse. So Hulk seems to be spicy, and then everybody loves the Angel. Then Ishkana is kind of spicy if you can switch on Delirium, and you can achieve that by eating Familiar, get some good 5-drop, then crack some Evolving Wilds, cast some Tutor spells, crack the Green Vessel, for example, things like that. And then, regardless of the version you choose, you probably want to play a Stompa somewhere in the 75, at least in the sideboard for extra life gain. Green Warden seems to be crazy as an additional 6-drop, just provides a lot of value, and when it comes in and when it dies, so you can hit it with the evolution. Well, it's not gonna give you an 8-drop, so that's an issue, but yeah, good like Traverse, Target, things like that. Then I think you gotta have in the sideboard at least a Warden. We've seen quite a bit in the future match area this past weekend. Then at least you wanted one copy of Viola, if not more. Nantuga Husky is gone, but this is as best as we can get, and it's okay because it's legendary. You don't want many copies though. Hulk is a spicy 6-drop, like just given value just as Green Warden. I'm not sure if they need to be in main deck or in sideboard or in the deck at all, so there is different approaches to this deck. Then Stag is kind of interesting because it's also a removal for smaller guys, but because it's not like Shriekmore, maybe you don't need it at all, but it's definitely something worth considering, especially because of the evolution. So you can eat like a Catacomb Sifter and get this Stag, spicy 4-drop that you can get just a straight upgrade on the Gravedigger. But then again, do you really need this? Then this, well, not Saitos, but anyway, Haruruya build has quite a different take on this archetype. I kept one Advocate because sometimes maybe you want to fetch for it with Traverse or something, just to beef up your manlands. But then again, if you're going all in on combo and cut the value guys, then you probably don't need the manlands and you can just play the new duels instead. And then the deck becomes less awkward because of less tap lands, and then you don't really have time to dirtle with Advocate, so it depends on how you approach the deck. So yeah, I've tried to fit in like both Traverse and Evolution here, but then again, I thought that the new incarnation of this deck wouldn't really abuse the Cryptolite right that much. But in a bit of testing that I did with the deck, it actually seems kind of necessity in a bunch of copies, even though it becomes redundant after the first one. But you need that boost, because otherwise I don't know how the deck is going to keep up with the red-white menace, all the vehicles decks and all the red aggro decks, etc. So Vessel is here just to keep you dig and switch on Delirium, which I thought was kind of a big thing. Um, just a singleton permaconing for more value. Then sideboard continues the toolbox theme, so you might want a number of those creatures. Definitely want playing Vala. Then you probably want Demon in the sideboards because of the evolution, and just helps maybe in the mirror matchup. Like Kaladesh should help the mirror matchups and aggro matchups. You probably want some copies of Spirit against the sweepers, and then Talia against vehicles as well. I'm surprised to actually not see her having a big impact in week 1. Uh, Tracker seems to be kind of a good spicy value card, but I don't know whether you really need it. That's the problem. Spicy targets for evolution also include Gaunting against some mid-range strategies, I suppose. Then your spell suit could involve a bunch of different things, but because I think I should move away from Delirium plans, then instead of Pick the Brain, I'll have to play more of the Lost Legacy, which doesn't really care about that stuff. Definitely want Transgress, you definitely want some removals, but maybe not decoration, maybe the Skyweller shot or Stasis Snares, things like that, because there's always like the option to play Season's Pass, just like bring everything back from your graveyard basically for this deck because your curve is so widespread. You might complement Selfless Spirit with Interlude just to get more value and things like that, and have an actual instant protection spell because this deck doesn't have Retro Chain, so the Spirit is a sorcery speed guy. You don't have Corda Calling or Company anymore, so there is a chance that Interlude might be even better than Spirit in this deck. I probably want Unmaking because you have access to those colors. Maybe it's better than just having Stasis Snare and Scout Whaler shot because that it can hit like anything, including Gideon, which could be a problem if backed up by a lot of removal and things like Kaladesh, for example. So you might want to try the Olven Meld Mysteries in here in the sideboard because it was in the Black-Green Aristocrats before, and now we don't have the that 2-mana green enchantment. I always forget the name, the Origins one. So you want some good value enchantment against grindy matchups. Yeah, but this is still work in progress. I'm constantly revising it, and I think I'm gonna move more towards this version from Japanese guys from the Haruya store. Very simple deck list, but they kind of have a trend of having very straightforward direct list for week 1 in the new format. That's kind of their thing. They don't want to overthink this, and they want to produce a bunch of deck lists as quick as possible to help them, of course, and also just to give more various strategies for people to ponder about. And it's hard to play test all those decks in time as well. So this is a very focused list. No Travers, just evolution. Just one Ily max on all the important parts. 24 lands, including the hub, just to help you cast everything, but also helps you cast the displacer. Then I don't necessarily approve like 3 copies of the Abbey here, but then again, perhaps it's actually okay if you have like full 4 of the Sifters and then 3 Bird Monitors and 3 of the Wanderer, whatever, the 4 common drop 1/1 that produces 2 signs, which synergizes greatly with the evolution, with the Cryptolite Rite, with the Cutthroat as well, and then gives you more fodder for different things and so on. So yeah, it's a thing. And yeah, no manlands, so basically more on the Abbey plan, and it's just more tokens and stuff like this. That also helps the Angel of Invention, which is just a 1 of coffee, but you can tutor up for it just by eating random 3-drop, probably Sifter. I guess not Displacer. It's very focused, but no sideboards, and so that's a pity. but because there are so many things you can play in the sideboard here, um, the main deck could be like revised a lot. Okay, moving on. So this is a combo deck that I didn't quite see at the SCG Open, but I think like it was a very high chance to see that deck. But we saw a bunch of other funky combo decks as well. Well, kind of combo-ish. So this is a version I brewed a while ago, but this is not really well refined and so on. I'll have to tune it up quite a lot. So the idea is that you cantrip a lot with the help of Prism, Puzzle Knot, etc. With the help of some cantrips like Anticipate perhaps. And then you find the reservoir, play it, and then you start kind of comboing off and casting a bunch of 0 mana equipments. You can put Endless one here, but I don't really like it. 8 is probably enough considering the cantrip artifacts as well. And then you cast the outcome and reboot this whole process. And then the 0 manas help you for the Crush of Tentacles and to draw more with the innovation. So if you splash green here, you can play Wilder's Dreams to return some of the combo pieces. Then with the Crush, which you can easily often play on turn 5 for Surge, just casting a 0 mana artifact. And then you can at instant speed bounce their stuff with the Engulf, so to give you one more turn, kinda. Then cast that Fog to give you one more turn. And then hence the mana base, so more Evolving Wilds, even though we're a 2-color deck because we want more islands for the Engulf. And I think if you actually play Engulf in the end, you actually want more islands and stuff like that, because mainlands are not really that important. And then with the Prism, it's okay to have the splash color mana, and you don't really have that much green, you're almost mono blue. And then in the sideboard you have a lot of different things. I don't have 15 here because I wasn't sure what. Dismissal, definitely Firma, cool and stuff like that, to not screw you up. Some counter spells, extra fogs and things like that. And then some answer to planeswalkers or ridiculous permanents. For example, things like that. And yeah, this is not super well refined, and I might like the Japanese guy's version, so that's, I believe, Kenjutsu Mora's lists. He went also like with a very consistent version. So also the loot land, but also the legendary land that can sometimes fetch you an artifact, which is pretty important because Reservoir is your main win condition basically. Maxed out on Crash, no Engulf, I could see that because you need a lot of islands for that, and he put in a bunch of duels and a lot of black sources. I guess to support the black puzzle not, but you have the Prism anyway, so this is kind of strange. And his main, I guess, reason to splash black is the 1/4 lifelinker guy for 2 that gets you Cries when artifacts enter. So what I like about this list is it's very focused, so not much dirling. I just forgot about that legendary non-basic that fetches your artifacts and gains you life. And then I forgot about the crane. I've put it in my more kind of anti-control vehicles version, but turns out that you don't need red in the vehicles. Don't need blue in the vehicle stack because as a red-white you're just too fast for a lot of control decks to handle anyway. So Crane is perfect here, fetches you up the reservoir, so it's kind of a anticipate that can actually block, so which is great, I guess. But I don't think you need black splash here, even because of the black puzzle knot, simply because you have the prism for that mana, and then it's not always you will actually eat the puzzle knot. So I think you should just rather have, I don't know, maybe like 4 copies of the new green fog in here instead of this guy. On the other hand, it can block and it's Christ, so maybe you kind of want to splash, I don't know, but I just feel like fog kind of gives you more, because it just buys you a whole turn to join to whatever you need. But it depends, it depends. Bit of extra lifelink could be relevant, so it depends. Plus, black has also good sideboard options as well as green. Maybe even better sideboard than green, perhaps. So, it depends, it depends. Then the deck that we actually saw, but definitely not this configuration. This is what I kind of prototyped, but I think I was definitely wrong. I wasn't wrong about motorists, but it was kind of a freebie. I was probably wrong about the huge amount of artifacts. You don't really need that many. Uh, was wrong about the Gear Hulk in this deck. It's just probably too expensive for this deck. Kind of run about the spells in main deck, but I definitely first saw those just in the 75 at least. We didn't see that many planeswalkers in the sideboards for those decks, but I mean, you never know, things could change. And then after this week 1, I don't know, Nahiri could be a pretty big deal for the mirror, because it gets rid of all those vehicles. The big chanter could be a big deal because yeah, it can clean the board a little bit and also be a win condition, etc, etc. Then Fumigate plus Selfless could be a real deal, but yeah, Tourniquets might be too heavy, but you need stuff like Stasis Near and so, like Dead Whale Shot, which I knew was a good card, but it was slightly surprising to me how good it was for constructed action. So this is what actually took down the tournament. CVM at his best, a team card hoarder, and yeah, wasn't exactly surprised to see PNLR. I was actually happy to see her. 2 copies is kind of interesting. I guess in the more aggressive version, she's pretty good. Selfless is main deck, which is kind of interesting. I thought it would be just a sideboard card, but things turned out different way. Inspector was something I just completely forgot. I thought they would play the other one drop the Apprentice in addition to Exemplar. But CVM in his winning interview, I think, or deck interview, was saying that once they moved off of that one drop, the deck became much better. And then some more instant removal, a lot of declarations main deck. Free Cruiser, which is okay. Copter was the star of this tournament, that's for sure. Just 2 flagships, and that's mostly it as for artifacts, excluding the Pia, which is actually a thing where most decks will end up at. So, which is a bit of a disappointment for me, but I've seen people actually saying that you don't really need that many, and you better not play that many because then you'll be in trouble. Weaver of Lightning, another star of this tournament for sure, as well as things like Skyward Layer Shot and Gideon, I think, just because of the green-white aggro, which didn't do insanely well, but still relatively well. Even though it was played by a lot of very good players. So let's move on to the blue-red Alchemist deck. So this is derived basically from an existing list from the last season, so nothing much changed in here. Okay, like I mix up one card, of course, it's the other bombardment card, that's the removal. Thinking of the one of Reservoir in this deck just because like extra life gain and stuff like that. Then of course Weaver, that's in the sideboard. Since I scroll down, might as well, because you kind of know most of you know the main deck, but I'm gonna explain it of course. Traveler for extra draws, Castigator, no, it wasn't the Todd Anderson's list of this deck from the before Kaladesh. Some counter spells and of course extra returns. And then I think this deck can try of different artifacts in here. Because of Thing and Dice, the flip side, I think Key to the City is kind of spicy because it lets you loot, and then it also makes your 7/8 horror unblockable, so that's kind of cool. Curie, well, you kind of can dump your hand pretty quickly and cycle through your hands, etc. So you might want to have like this extra capability. One of tower, because yeah, why not? You're a spells deck after all. So then of course vision, and of course this is not the goblin bombardment. This is the one mana removal. Sorry for that. Maybe should be 4 of main deck, but I don't know. 3 is okay. 2 off in main deck is kind of weird, just because you know what the cut does. So it's like a Fury Impulse kind of effect, because you have your usual interaction spells, and then instead of Tormenting Voice, you get the Cathartic Union. Here's 2. I think you should play more, because Jace is gone, and then things changed, and this is also like one of the best cards for in standards right now. I mean, among commons, in my mind, it's just feel so many things. Like Grixis emerged that was in the finals of that Star City Open. Yeah, a bunch of burn spells that can go either way and give you options, something like that. And this is what actually we saw at the tournament a little bit. The guy ended up 23rd place. He played the Curious Homunculus. This is mind-blowing. I mean, if there is a deck for this creature, then it's this deck, but still, that's kind of crazy. So he replaced Chase with Storm Chaser, sort of. I feel like that what happened. So no thing in the ice. I'm not sure if I like that, because in a meta game full of vehicles decks, you might actually want the thing in the ice because it blocks well, and then sometimes its instant speed can flip and bounce everything, including the vehicles. Could be a big blowout. Chandra main deck, not really surprising, but of course moderate number of it. Both just Tormenting Voice in here. It's kind of weird. I feel like this deck could actually play the Reunion. Expected cards, 4 of bombardment. Yeah. Sideboard, in a way, expected. Yeah, rejection is just great against vehicles, but actually the vehicles decks are not playing a huge amount of them. So 4 copies maybe is a bit too much. Maybe you'd wanna like split it with some other more flexible counter spell. Yeah, the rest of the sideboard is pretty self-explanatory. Okay, moving on. This is what I thought Temur Emerge could look like. I'm not sure I was correct. Once again, I think this list was something I brewed up based on some sample deck list from pre-rotation. Yeah, we see a lot of traits from the Albrish Moon season. New additions are the Rashmi, which I think should be pretty crazy in this kind of deck. So yeah, basically, if you, let's say, like cast Deep Fiend, you can maybe get into another Deep Fiend, or just kind of cycle through your Fettis. I'm not sure if the deck actually needs her. Playtests will show, but if there is deck, then like this could be a pretty good shell for Rashmi. Yeah, a lot of usual cards, and then new cards in the sideboard is just the Nissa the Vital Force. Everything else is from the last season. I'm kind of surprised not to see that many versions of this deck, and Bridge Submersion is kind of sweet because it has a lot of grinding capabilities with all the black cards, so all the graveyard synergies and all that jumping back and forth, so it helps in grinding matchups. But I don't know, I like Temur as well. So there was one deck that, well, didn't do too well, but still we have the list because it did end up into 64. So what's different? Just 2 vessels. Full 4 of the Grief, which is interesting. Servant, which might be probably better than the 0-3 to drop, but it's still there. So there is that. just 2 Elder Deep, which is I think a mistake. It's probably like the best card in the whole deck after Emrakul, I guess. Followed by Ishkana. Well, I mean, Deep and then Ishkana. So, 4 Familiaris and Pilgrim's Eye as well. I'm not sure this list is actually where you want to be. At least I want 4 copies of the Deep Veins, and maybe just 2 of the Grief. So yeah, that's kind of weird to me. You're yeah, why not? You might as well. So untap some stuff, and then yeah, get it's a source of card advantage as well. So he has a third one in the sideboards. I mean, third Deep Vein, which is still kind of weird to me. Dried is okay, Lorca, Test Tracker, yeah, sure. 3 copies of Rejection, which is, yeah, a good thing, but once again, it's kinda clunky. I can't consider seriously people playing like 3 or 4 copies of it. Maybe like for week 1 it was okay, but still there were so many different decks still, even though vehicles decks prevailed, white, red, and red-black versions of it. But it's weird, you can still just die to some non-artifact stuff, so yeah, maybe people put so many copies into the sideboard just because they anticipated that Ultrad is actually still a thing. Turns out it's probably just slower than vehicles. Yeah, Tishkanon, yeah, obviously Nissa. Yeah, viable deck, but perhaps Grixis is better, but then again, Green Vessel, Grapple, and Traverse are just so sick cards, and then who knows, maybe just recurring Ishkanaz can be just a full stop for vehicles deck. Yeah, certainly it feels like that to me. Okay, moving on. This is not Planeswalkers or Super Fan, something that we haven't really seen at the Open, but I feel like it's a pretty crazy deck. This is not exactly like what you think it would be, but it's a work in progress, and you can tune it up for your own flavor. I feel like I and family are belonging here just because of like Traverse and just good value, and because the 3 mana Origins Nissa is gone, so you needed some replacements. And then thanks to Familiar and I, which I'm not sure how many copies of each you want to play, I feel like the land is kind of more important than life or a random card. But they help you to switch in Delirium, that's why Traverse is here. Kinda like Spark in this deck as a like 1 mana removal, and that kinda loots or cantrips. But then again, it's a sorcery speed removal, so I know, probably not correct. I like Reunion in this deck as a way to dig for Planeswalkers and Sweepers and stuff like that. So this is probably not the most optimal version of it, but definitely a beginning. Because of Delirium, I like Ishkana here and one of Emrakul, and then because of Travis, you can play just a 1 white Gear Hulk here. Not sure about Avacyn's here, but with Advo and the artifact guys, flipping Avacyn maybe is not that that hard, but let's see. I don't hate one of maybe Angel of Invention here as well. So your Planeswalker suit, which is supported by your old friend Off of Nissa, is here. Some numbers could be off. You might want to play the 6 mana Chandra here as well, at least as a one of main deck. So the numbers probably will vary according to your preferences in your meta game. But you definitely want the 6 mana Chandra in your 75 somewhere. I don't know how come I miss her here, even in the sideboard. So yeah, in addition to Fumigates, between main deck and sideboard you have Radiant Flames. Then of course between main and side you'll have Declaration, some Stasis Snares, Guaranteeing Field, because Well, even though it's sorcery speed, but you can actually touch artifacts with it, and because planeswalkers. It's not sure how many copies of Tala you want here, but really helps, of course, against vehicles and stuff like that. Just to slow them down until you get your mid to late game going on. So there is that. Don't really have good prototype from somebody else to compare it with, so we're gonna move to the last deck then. Which is on my side is not really a complete deck list. It's just a rough sketch without the lands, and it's just weird. So I was just thinking how to abuse the Everworks Marvel in Standard, and I was thinking of a lot of cantrip artifacts and stuff that produces energy, and then with the help of the Metalwork Colossus, which we actually saw. As we can see on the Star City webpage for top 64 deck list, there is actually a more dedicated blue-black version of the Colossus deck. Anyways, so play a bunch of artifacts, and then get back Colossus, cast it for cheap, eat a bunch of artifacts, get more energy, stuff like that, and support cards will be like Inspector to make all your cantrip puzzle knots and stuff cheaper, and then Familiar to get things going, and then your all loots like Grapple and Green Vessel, but of course you might as well splash red for the Reunion, and then the payoff cards for the Marvel were, and I actually was right when the deck that featured Marvel in the that we saw on camera during the open coverage, they did have like all those big Eldrazi monsters, so I was right, it was just the only big like payoff card with the Marvel, what you would be looting for. Yeah, and I thought this could have a right, because this way you kind of set up things for sure for the next turn, but maybe just because you will need to have two Marvels in play to actually do something on the same turn and try to win like that. Maybe you don't need that, but it's definitely something interesting to consider, maybe against grinding matchups. And this, what we actually saw, this is a Timur version. You do have the plan, which is kind of weird. Because I don't think it works with the Marvel, and permanently controls put into a graveyard. So I'm not sure about the wording. Maybe it does trigger Marvel. It's put into a graveyard. Well, it doesn't say from play, so I guess all the milling stuff actually helps. Tune is kind of interesting here. Probably the best deck for it in my opinion. Yeah, Reunion, the plan is kind of weird, but I guess it works with Marvel. It just didn't occur to me, because I wasn't really concentrating on this Marvel deck that much. The puzzle knots, of course, the blue, and I suppose that's the green one. And you have 4 Lomox, 4 Markles, and 4 Turtles. And 4 Turtles. Just kind of crazy. I guess just because it's a cheap source of energy, just early blocker, things like that. That's still very crazy. No green Vessel or the Grapple, which is kind of weird, but I guess you don't really need it. Hydra's kind of weird here. I don't know if you want it, so it's like a plan B sort of thing. Try to hold off aggro cup, also to hold off aggro meltdown, to hold off aggro return, to hold off aggro negate, to hold off control. Yikes, that's a lot of stuff he potentially brings in as a like kind of transformational package to hold off faster decks. Or just bring it in against decks that have something like Lost Legacy in it, so black mid-range controlish decks. Okay, that's about it from me for this time around. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you like this overview. There will be one more because there are a few more prototype decks that I was thinking of for week 1 that I'll get to compare to the actual deck list that's we also on the stream this weekend. So yeah, until the next time, goodbye folks.